This video is going to be a focus on the Ravens offense and what Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken, and all the new additions to the Ravens offense are going to be able to create, are going to be able to produce over a 17-game season and hopefully the playoffs. Look, the additions of Zay Flowers, OBJ, Nelson Aguilar, they've definitely changed the flavor of the Ravens offense to some extent. Maybe they've added some much-needed carbs to the dinner menu. Maybe they're the salad or the dessert, whatever comparison you want to make. Re-signing Lamar Jackson also ensures that the Ravens offense has a high floor, since his mere presence over the course of 17 games, hopefully, means good things can happen on any random play, even one that's misblocked or poorly executed. And then Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Rashad Bateman being healthy just raises the ceiling or potential of the offense even more, along with Lamar being there for 17 games. Those four, along with Mark Andrews, who, let's be honest, he dealt with nagging injuries last year, just gives the Ravens a ton of high-end talent to rely on at any moment. But something tells me that the biggest sea change in the Ravens attack in 2023 could have happened in early February, and that's the hiring of Todd Monken. Saying that the offensive philosophy has done a 180 really isn't enough of a turn for me. I almost think it's more like a 540. Do the math there if you want. Maybe that doesn't work. After watching a lot of Georgia film from 2021 and 2022, and I previously did a video on his offenses in Tampa Bay and Cleveland because I could use some of the NFL film for that. I'm not going to show any college film. There will be limited film shown here for me to make 3 points, just so you know. I still find myself trying to catch up in terms of some of the tendencies and patterns. I think Todd Monken is one of those guys that tries to attack defenses based on their personnel, specifically in how they line up. I'll try to prove some of that to you in this video, maybe. I think that's the point. Monken's offense appears to be one that has evolved and improved from Tampa Bay to Cleveland to Georgia. And it's one that looks a step ahead of defenses on film, so it shouldn't be a surprise for you or me or anyone that it's a step ahead of even any of our own understanding at this point as it stands in early May. I certainly don't feel like an expert on it, but what I did was I hand charted like 84 plays. So I'll share that link. It'll be a shared drive. You're welcome to grab that if you want. It'll be somewhat sloppy, but you'll see some of the down and distance information. I'll show it in a minute. And I hand charted most of it from Georgia in 21 and 22. Now look, let me do a comparison here. Over the last 4 years, I've probably accumulated, organized, and labeled almost 1,000 plays from Greg Roman's offense, something like that. Some of them are labeled in the online database that myself and the people in the Patreon and Discord have access to and do some work on and utilize for content creation. And some of them are just labeled on my computer, so like nobody else ever sees them but me. But my point is I've labeled and watched and studied a lot of Greg Roman's offense in the last 4 years. And now I've got about 10 or 12 games from Todd Monken's offense that I tried to grab plays on out of certain formations. And part of this was from a message back and forth with Alex Poulianis, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, from One Winning Pod. He's in my Discord and Patreon, and we were talking about Monken's offense. Would it be predictable based on formation, based on certain players lining up certain ways? That's basically what a formation is. And let me tell you some things that I think I'm seeing, and keeping in mind that this is only from 10, 11, 12 games, something like that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you some of the plays that I hand charted, and they're kind of sloppy, all right? And then I'm going to just give you some points. And the points that I'm describing don't actually, this is in Adobe, obviously, so you can see the titles at the top of the screen, so the professional appearance of the video is now gone, obviously. But one thing that I noticed is he uses short motion a lot. So I'm talking about like this right here, by the Z. That was his final position right before the snap. But initially he lined up out wide. Well, I mean, the Ravens use that sometimes with Greg Roman as well. But it is definitely something he uses before the snap on run and pass plays. And I think it changes the read for the DBs often and doesn't give them the chance to communicate anything. That's point number one. Now, these are going to be just a number of plays for you to look at, and hopefully I can do this neatly and succinctly. And then, like I said, there'll be a link in the description that you're welcome to take a look at. Also have, the time, the quarter, the opponent, the year, the formation labeled here for each one. I didn't want to take time to put this in a computer program because it adds time, and it's been too long for me to get, to this video. All right, so you can see another example of the short motion. This time, I think this is 12 personnel. So you got one tight end here, which I think was Brock Bowers, and a second tight end. And this is going to lead me to my next 2 points. He attacks to the boundary a lot. And I think he makes a point to attack to the boundary with run plays and screens. It seems like he does that early in games. And I'll be honest with you, I can't prove that. I don't have the plays like organized first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and can tell you, oh, he runs 62% of his plays to the boundary in the first quarter, but only 48 in the second quarter. I can't tell you that percentage. It's just an observation that I think I can make. Another thing that I've noticed, and this is not just Todd Monken, he's going to make corners tackle. He's going to have blocking schemes like you see here. Now, the left guard in this case and the center are pulling. The left guard ends up kicking out the corner. But he has schemes where he's going to leave the corner unblocked. He's going to make them tackle running backs, and I like it, to be honest with you. It's a common blocking scheme, don't get me wrong, where you're taking care of the front side inside linebacker and or the play side safety, and then you're leaving the play side corner unblocked. Or in this case, the guard is getting out to him, but it's a little late. It's not something that you don't see a whole bunch of other people. A bunch of other teams do. It seems like something that Todd Monken does often, especially to the boundary. All right, I've also seen him double the nickel and or play side safety, almost like a combo block. So with like a tight end and an X or a Z receiver, and then leave the corner unblocked. So it's a unique thing that a lot of people are doing. Todd Monken does it, if you ask me, more than other people. I'm just showing you plays at this point while I make a couple of other points that are somewhat unrelated to what I just said. All right, he uses 6-man protection schemes a lot, and he also leaves DNs unblocked often. So like initially this DN here is chipped by the tight end who then releases out into the flats. The other tight end out of 12 personnel is going in motion, or excuse me, post snap is going across the formation, and it's a play action, and it's like he's making it look like he's going to go out into the route or maybe kick out the D end, and then he takes over the D end. They do this a lot. Todd Monken's offense, if you ask me, uses slide protection often. I'm not going to go into the particulars of that, but basically you're leaving an outside linebacker or an edge player unblocked initially, and then he might be getting kicked out by someone or taken over by a running back and a fullback. All right, a couple more plays for you to see. Some of these are a little too big. My apologies. Let's get to, he has high expectations, if you ask me, for his skill position players. I'm going to talk about a 3-play sequence that I've seen Brock Bowers be expected to do. I think this was against South Carolina in 2022. On the first play of this 3-play sequence, Brock Bowers actually ran the ball. It was a fast sweep to the field for like a 13-yard gain. The very next play, he was lined up out in space, and he was expected to go block for a bubble screen. So he's expected to go block the nickel defender. On the third play, excuse me, on the third play was a pass play. He had to run a typical route because it was like a 3rd and 2. So those 3 plays could have easily been in any order, to be honest with you. But the point is, Brock Bowers was expected to do all 3 of them consecutively. I think that the tight end position is pivotal in this offense, and I think it's a good thing that the Ravens have Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Charlie Kolar. Who knows what Pat Ricard's role will be. Certainly won't be to run fast sweeps, but whoever's out there at tight end, Todd Monken is going to have a high expectation level for them in terms of running routes, in terms of blocking, and just being involved in the offense at all levels. All right, I'm going to switch over to some film here. And we're going to talk about a basketball comparison. The first one that I'll make two in this video. It's positionless basketball. And it's not really a great comparison for football, but I'm going to talk about what's going to be expected of the tight ends in this offense. I'm going to use two Ravens plays to show you how unpredictable Monken's offense can be, if you ask me, versus what we had last year with Greg Roman. All right, so this is week 5, 2022. It's going to be a sweep to Duvernay. Now, this is a read. It's QB power read. Lamar could keep it. He could give it to Duvernay like he does here. Now, pay attention to what's happening on the motion. We're running the motion to Pat Ricard, and we're running the motion to Mark Andrews, another tight end. Could be a keep by Lamar. Could be a give. In this case, I think he's probably reading the backside inside linebacker. Backside inside linebacker's not getting enough width to stop the sweep, so he gives the sweep. The running back is going to get, what is Von Bell, but he's essentially lined up at inside linebacker pre-snap. Let me pull this back for you. They've walked up one of their inside linebackers. Von Bell has stepped into the box to play inside linebacker. That's how versatile he is. I think Lamar's probably reading the backside inside linebacker, Logan Wilson. Lamar knows the front side guy, Von Bell, is going to be blocked by Mike Davis. Who's unblocked on this play? The corner, Awuzie, who's a hell of a football player. I think this is somewhat similar to things we might see from Monken at times in terms of leaving the corner unblocked. Where I think it is dissimilar is that I think the Ravens' motion and what they do out of it is going to be less predictable. Let me show you another play to hopefully finalize this point here. 2021 film against Denver. The motion is somewhat different, don't get me wrong. You have Duvernay motioning from the top side of the screen to the bottom. It's a pass play. There's not much of a play fake here. You can say whatever you want about Lamar. My point is, when we get to the end zone angle, watch where Andrews and Ricard are located. Now, this isn't 100% of the time, but a large majority of the time, when the Ravens would motion to Ricard, it was a run play, like the first one I showed you against the Bengals. When the Ravens would motion away from Ricard, it was a pass play. They were trying to utilize teams' tendencies to try to stop the run to his side, to Ricard's side, and then throw the ball in the opposite direction. It's a successful play. It's a wheel sit route, so that's all great. My point is, this is not going to be the case in Todd Monken's offense. And to go back to a point that I made a moment ago, Brock Bowers ran a tight end sweep. He ran that motion to the side where there was two wide receivers lined up. Todd Monken has a high expectation level for guys blocking in his system. You will see times where players who do not block well are not on the field for particular plays, and I also suspect that there will be times if you're not blocking well that you will not be on the field that much in the first place, even on pass plays. And I respect that. That's winning football. That's a winning mentality. If you look at film from Cleveland, if you look at film from Tampa Bay and clearly Georgia, his guys block well out on the perimeter. That's my first basketball comparison. Positionless football, meaning tight ends are going to be expected to block, receivers are going to be expected to block. You might even see Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely be utilized on a fast sweep. Now, if I had to make another basketball comparison, and I'm not a huge fan of this team. In fact, I really don't like them, never have. But I have to recognize the team aspect of what the Spurs did for years. And I'm talking about offensively in the NBA. The ball was moved side to side, passed around, and they forced the defense to defend the sidelines, horizontal first, before the offense could find a lane, through to the basket or create a 4-on-3. And I don't think football and basketball comparisons work all the time. This is just what came to mind after watching 4 games in particular. Georgia, Alabama in 2021, both games. South Carolina in 2022, and Clemson in 2021. And the reason why I'm making this comparison to the Spurs is because I don't know if you remember a lot of those playoff series where Danny Green would be averaging like 33 points through 3 games. and Tim Duncan would only be averaging 19. And then the next two games, Tim Duncan would go off for 36 and 29. And then game 6, Tony Parker would score 42. This offense, to me, under Todd Monken, watching it from especially those 4 games against Georgia, it looks like a different guy carries the load each week, depending on what the defense gives up. And I think that's defensive personnel, that's defensive alignment, and Todd Monken attacking certain coverages to the field or the boundary. I can't really give you specific examples, just an observation that I made after watching those 4 games. All right, we'll get back to some plays here. Some of the charting that I did, excuse me. Takes me a minute to get there. I think there's a lot of designed plays in this offense. I think Monken goes into a game and he has a plan to attack certain sides of the field, certain players, but they're not brand new concepts each week. And here's what I mean. They build off established plays. So they look like things that the offense is already running on a weekly basis. So defensively, you've seen film of a particular formation and a particular play, and you're prepared for that as the offense lines up. And then he's got a designed play. I don't want to say trick play, but a designed play to exploit a certain thing in the coverage. Basically, they don't look drastically different from things that you see on a weekly basis. The design plays, or trick plays if you will, look like things that have been installed already. In fact, I'll go a little bit further. I think that Monken installs the designed and even trick plays in camp. They're not created and installed in week 7. There was 2 plays last year by the Ravens where you could kind of tell that they were plays that had been installed the week before. The sloppiness, the lack of timing, even pre-snap, the way the guys were getting lined up. I don't think that's the case with Monken. It just looks smoother. I can't prove it, to be honest with you. It's just my suspicion. I'm offering you that observation, free of charge. All right, a related point, and this is really why I did a lot of the charting and made them available for you guys to see. You have multiple plays from the same formation that threaten the defense to both sides, to the strong side, the tight end side, to the weak side, horizontally. And even at different depths. And what I mean by different depths is, 5 yards down the field, 8 yards down the field, 10 yards down the field. He threatens the defense to both sides of the field strategically, so that as you prepare as a defensive coordinator, as a defensive player, you don't know, okay, we get this formation, we've only got plays to one side. This is a one-sided formation. So let me be specific about this, okay? He will run to a one receiver side. So when I say a one receiver side, you have a very sloppily drawn diagram here, so forgive me. This is the one receiver side. This is the X, the backside receiver. You have trips to this side out of 12 personnel. Greg Roman did not. The only time that Greg Roman would run to the one receiver side is if we had a fullback who was in the backfield next to the quarterback, and he would end up leading. So there was a key, there was an indicator, something taking you as a defensive player to that play. Todd Monken will run direct run plays to the X side, to the one receiver side, and force you to defend it, particularly to the boundary. Greg Roman just didn't do that. I mean, you may be able to find 4 or 5 examples of it from 4 years. I can find 10 or 12 just from the 11 or 12 games that I watched of Todd Monken's offense. I can find out even more looking at Cleveland's offense from 2018 or 2019 maybe. My point is, this is a different mind that is creating the offense, and this is a different application because you have run and pass plays to both sides out of each formation to keep the defense, quote, honest and not give them indicators that basically let them know, hey, look at this guy, and he's going to take you to the play. Now, look, this is just from the games I've charted so far, and you're welcome to believe me or not. Let me switch over to some video, and I'll try to illustrate the point for you a little bit. All right, we're going to look at, I think, 5 plays from 2022, and we're just going to talk about formations. I'll let this one loop one time. Huntley playing quarterback against the Steelers, I think up in Pittsburgh, so I believe the Ravens won this game. But let's look at pre-snap. Now, this is not a one receiver side, like I pointed out, an X receiver, but it is a solo side, meaning a nub tight end. If the Ravens were going to run the ball to this side, I'm telling you that Pat Ricard, post snap or right before the snap, would be motioning over, or his feet will be lined up here next to the quarterback, and he would go in this direction and read the end man on the line of scrimmage for the option. We won't get into all that. Just hopefully you can believe me. Point is, the Ravens are not going to run the ball to this side, and the Steelers know it. It still ends up being a successful play. I think this is the 5th or 6th possession of this game. Now, when we get the end zone angle, I'm going to talk to you about high expectations that Todd Monken is going to have for his players, and I just don't think this is going to work. I don't think that this is going to be enough effort and enough actual attempt. Do I think Mark Andrews is going to be able to block Highsmith all the time successfully? No, but I think Monken is going to expect more effort than that. Now, let's get back to my point about being predictable. What do we got? Same thing I showed you earlier on. Ricard, Andrews to one side, and then a receiver off screen to our left, to the offense's left, the defense's right. It's the 3 receiver side. Greg Roman, whether he was this person or not in 2019, he became a guy, and I've seen this many times at many different levels of football, that runs to the side where there's more eligible receivers. Pre-snap, we'll do it again. 1, Duvernay. 2, Likely. 3, Ricard. Backside, you've got another nub tight end, which I think is Oliver. Where's the play going? Bottom side, downside of our screen. Offense is right, defense is left. Stretch concept. I do not think that Monken is this guy. Monken, to me, looks like a guy who will run stuff back to the other side and force you to defend it, especially to the boundary, number 1. Number 2, especially to force you to stay more honest so that he then can attack you to the front side. This is not a repeat play or a mirrored image somehow. I'm not that good in Adobe programs. This is this may be the actually play before that. Another stretch concept with Gus. Still ends up being a 4-yard gain. The point is we were going to run the ball into certain sides. We were going to be very predictable. None of us, myself included, is prepared for how unpredictable and how prepared I think the Ravens offense will be to attack the defense in a strategic manner. We will be more strategic in the first quarter by game plan, and I think we'll be better able to adapt during the game, which was a source of weakness for the Ravens as well. I'm not sure if I made my last point there, but basically what I was trying to say was we'll have formation balance in terms of the point of attack to the horizontal and vertical, to attack the defense horizontally and vertically. All right, I had to switch over just for a second. A couple more examples here. Watch this linebacker Davis's reaction to Ricard on the ensuing 2 plays that I show you. I'm not going to talk about the blocking scheme and what the Ravens may or may not have done wrong. Ricard taking Davis in this direction to the play side leads him right to what is, a 5-foot, 6-foot hole already. Davis gets involved in a tackle. I think 2 or 3 plays later, I could be wrong. Davis, bottom side of your screen, lined up directly over Ricard. This is a positive play. I think Linderbaum or somebody ends up getting tripped by a D tackle. Could have been even bigger. That's where Davis goes. Who's he going with? He's going with Ricard. This is the DN that's being read presumably by Lamar. I mean, Lamar may not be looking right at him, but out of the corner of his eye, he can see him. Our overall point is that they've got a tremendous key that takes them to the play a large majority of the time when we're in the pistol. To me, Monken looks like a guy that if there are tendencies like that, he's going to use them to abuse the defense and take advantage of them. Maybe I haven't shown you enough film to convince you of that. I did, quote, cherry pick these plays to try to make my point. I believe that the Ravens became incredibly predictable over time in Greg Roman's offense and did very little to try to counteract that. When you have tendencies, you can use them strategically, and I just didn't see them do that enough. All right, another couple of more points. There's a lot of under center stuff in Todd Monken's offense. A real balance, if you ask me, between this like over reliance on shotgun stuff that you see a lot and under center concepts. I think it'll benefit Lamar. Some people would say, Oh, he's not good under center. He's not this, he's not that. That's what they're going to be doing in camp. He's going to be working it more, in my opinion, because that's what Monken's concepts are built off of. Additionally, I think I've already mentioned the willingness to attack to the boundary to keep the defense honest, but I want to mention two plays in particular. Well, it's the same play, but it's against two different teams. It's Clemson and Alabama in 2021. It's a bunch to the field and the X receiver to the boundary. And they're just running inside zone to the boundary. I mean, there's no special teaching there. They got a 1 and a 5 technique. The center and the left guard, or the boundary side guard, are trying to combo up to the inside linebacker. The left tackle, or the outside, the tackle to the boundary, is taking the 5 technique. They got no nickel defender. He likes to attack away from the nickel defender, force that corner to the boundary to make tackles. The X will go get the safety. Theoretically, they've got everything blocked up. The Ravens just never did that. When they did attack to the boundary, to the one receiver side, it would usually involve Patrick Ricard, like the plays I just showed you, taking the linebackers to that point of attack, taking them to where the ball was going. That's my overall point in terms of attacking to the boundary. Todd Monken's going to do it in a way that's going to force the defense, or that's going to not give the defense the answers to the test before they even show up to test day. Hopefully that makes sense. I think a lot of Monken's designed plays come from under center. I counted what I thought was 8 designed plays, meaning plays I saw in like the 4th game I watched or the 5th one that I didn't see in the first 3 or 4. Hopefully that makes sense. So something that they designed specifically for a certain opponent. And out of those 8, all 8 of them were from under center. So to me, it seems like the designed, or I don't want to say trick plays, but they came from under center rather than the shotgun. So to me, that means I think that Monken is comfortable running certain concepts from under center and then building off of them for his designed or complementary plays. All right, in summary, this video went on a little longer than I wanted. Forgive me for the Adobe screens. I didn't know how else to display those well. You're welcome to download them. I got a shared drive that'll be in the description. So my summary, I don't think we're ready for how drastic this change will be, myself included. Like I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think any of us are ready for how different the offense is going to look when we first get to see it. Now, I'm not talking about the regular season. I mean, I think it's late June when the stadium practice is, and who knows how much they reveal. My point is, I think that so many of us are unprepared for what it will look like and what it will expect of Lamar and all the players. Nobody more so than the national media. Like, I remember these comments during Lamar's free agency period, or whatever you wanted to call it, when he was tagged non-exclusively. The national media just lags constantly, whether it's football or anything else, but definitely with respect to the Ravens offense. I remember hearing comments like this: playing in that offense might just be something Lamar Jackson doesn't want to do any longer. And these comments were made after Lamar was tagged, which I think was on March 7th, I believe. Well, Todd Monken was hired on February 14th, like 3 weeks earlier. Another one I heard, maybe Lamar wants to go to a more spread style offense. And someone else, well, I think he wants to go to a pro style offense. Not even understanding, or as if they were unaware, that Todd Monken was hired on February 14th, a month, or 3 weeks before the Ravens put the tag on Lamar. Why do I mention those dates? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think the Ravens offense changed with the signings of Nelson Aguilar, OBJ, and the drafting of Zay Flowers. It had already changed. Those signings were just to reflect the structural change that had already occurred when they chose to hire Monken. We're not going to be in the pistol option 22 times a game. We're not going to have Pat Ricard set to the right or left of the quarterback in Ram or Lion to be used as a key. Could we use those things occasionally and strategically? Sure. I hope they do. The counter option with the fullback going away from it is a hell of a play, and I think it's dangerous. My point is, the offense had already changed. Aguilar, OBJ, and Zay Flowers was just step 1, 2, and 3 beyond the decision they've already made. And the national media, or at least the ones making those comments, just didn't realize it and probably still don't. I don't think I'm the perfect person to encapsulate the changes in the offense. Consider this a heads up, maybe a warning, that I don't think any of us are ready for what we'll see maybe during the stadium practice. which I think is late June. Maybe the videos coming out of camp, but you sometimes just see little snippets, and it's like a route being run, so you can't really tell the formation. But there's a lot of us who try to figure out the formation. Was it shotgun? Was it under center, etc.? I think we're all in for a real shock to the system when we get to see the offense for the first time. And I look forward to the challenge, to be honest with you, because for me, it had become a little boring to just say, oh, we're lined up in Ram, and then now we can key the fullback. It's 1st and 10. So you kind of knew the play instantly after the ball was snapped, and you saw where Pat Ricard was going. This is going to be an adjustment for all of us, the players included. So I know those guys are going to get in work, here in the summer. I can't wait to see what Todd Monken and Lamar and OBJ and Aguilar and Zay Flowers can contribute, along with all the other mainstays who, pretty much finished last season, even though Duvernay, didn't finish the season, and Mark Andrews struggled to get to the end as well. You guys let me know what you think of my thoughts. I know I threw a lot of information out there. Again, I'll put the link in the description to those PDFs. You're welcome to download them and make observations in the comment section or, on Twitter if you wish. If you haven't considered joining my Patreon, man, this is what people talk about in the Patreon, and a lot of my observations here, our thoughts were kind of driven by some of the people in the Patreon. So shout out to those guys that are in the Patreon and the Discord, because they help fuel the content and kind of help spur me on sometimes. This one took a whole lot longer to produce than I intended, and that's why it ended up being a 30-minute video. So let me know what you think of the format. Another video where I'm not showing film the entire time. I tried to sprinkle in some of it and show you guys some of the hand-drawn diagrams to give you an idea of how I came to some of the observations, or I guess conclusions, if you will, that I did. Appreciate you guys' time. Let me know what you think of the video. If you think other Ravens fans or Georgia fans or anyone, who's a football fan would enjoy this content, please consider grabbing a link and going out on social media somewhere and pasting it so people can see, more eyes can see it, and it can help me make more revenue. Appreciate your time.